Hey educators, welcome to this DS4E tutorial where I'll be walking you through our new statistics lesson. Do you have what it takes to go viral? This lesson uses TikTok data to teach key statistical concepts in a way that will genuinely engage your students. Today I'm going to cover the statistical concepts that this lesson addresses, how to navigate the WebR platform in case you've never used it, don't worry, there's no coding required, and a step-by-step walkthrough of the entire lesson. So whether you're teaching AP statistics or you just want to bring some real-world relevance to your math class, this resource is designed to make your job easier while making statistics more accessible and interesting for your students. Before we dive into the platform, let's talk about some of the concepts that this lesson covers. The first thing that we're going to tackle is sampling and data collection. Students will work through a data set of TikTok videos and learn the difference between a population and a sample. They'll see firsthand how different samples can yield different results. Next, we're going to explore distributions and their shapes with the data. Then we're going to cover the central limit theorem, one of the most important concepts in statistics, but often one of the hardest for students to grasp. Using TikTok data, students will take samples of different sizes and see how the sampling distribution becomes more and more normal as that sample size increases. We'll also cover measures of center and spread, with students calculating means and standard deviations of both the original data and of their sampling distributions. And then finally, we'll analyze the relationships between variables by examining factors that the students are interested in that might affect TikTok's performance. Maybe that's duration of a video, the time that it's posted, or the content category. The beauty of this lesson is that it reinforces these abstract concepts with the data students care about. When they're investigating what makes a TikTok video go viral, they're much more motivated to understand the statistical methods behind it. Now let's get familiar with the WebR platform. Don't worry if you or your students have never used R before. I've designed this to be completely accessible to beginners. So first, we have to navigate to the WebR platform. I use webr.r. This enters into a blank panel. So this is where you will have your students start. On the left here is called the script editor. This is where we're going to type or paste the code that we're going to be using today. On the top right is the file browser. This is where the data will appear and where we're going to import our CSV document with the TikTok data. So let's first, I guess, get to that. This is also the output. So the things that we type up in here, you'll see some outputs here. And then this bottom right is where we'll see some of our visualizations. So what you're going to want to do first is in the materials that I have given to you, there's going to be a student worksheet, which looks like this. There is the teacher lesson plan, looks like this. And then there's also the CSV file of the TikTok data, which I have saved on my home screen. So what you're going to have your students do, they'll need access to the file as well, is you're going to say upload file, and then you can navigate to the CSV. It will show up. As long as it's in here, it doesn't really matter in which folder location that it is in. To load the data, you do have to have a few commands to get it to actually be able to look at this data file and work with it. In the student file, I have an activity to start with just some set fake data that I've created just to get their brains going in terms of like the mathematical concepts. But I'm going to skip that for now and jump down to what they're going to need to load in order to work with this data in the WebR platform. So first thing is we need to import some libraries to work with this data. So I'm just going to copy and paste them here. And then I'm going to click run. It's going to say, do you want to try downloading it in the WebR? Yes, I want to. So I'm going to click 1. And now we can see that the packages are loading. Yes, I also want this one to load, and I want the tidy data to load. Okay, so now we've successfully loaded those libraries. We can see that I have a second set of commands I'm going to copy and put in here. And this is the one that's going to, now that we have our libraries loaded, this is the one that's going to take our TikTok data. It has to be the exact spelling of our CSV and read it. And then to make sure that it is reading it, you can see that I have some code in here to give us just some information. So it's going to hopefully run. It does. Okay, so this in the output, you can see a lot of things happened. This is when our libraries were loaded, and now you can see that it read the data file and it spit out some of the things for us. So it looks like it's telling us that this CSV file has 99 observations with 13 different variables. And you can see that it gives kind of a snapshot of what those are. So the students, even without opening the data, can kind of get a feel for what the data has. So it has the categories, and it looks like there's a lot of different categories, but it gives us a couple of those: beauty, comedy. It has duration, I'm assuming in seconds, number of views, number of likes, engagement rate, the time it was posted, number of hashtags, the number of followers that account has, how old the account is, how many times it was shared, how many comments it has. So it looks like this is the data that we got from those 99 videos. And then it gives us this next command, the head, gives us what it looks like in the actual CSV file. So it says, oh, these are what the columns are like. And then it just spits out the first few of that data set. So you can see, like, of the instances that it pulled, it gave us, we can see a food, two foods, a dance, a sports, a beauty, and another food. And it kind of just shows you what it's going to look like. So this can be really helpful for students. Please note that this does wrap around. So these three columns actually in the spreadsheet, I'm sure, are over here. So just let your students know that that might look a little weird. And then it does give a summary. So it looks like of the data that it pulled, there were 12 that it classified as food, 11 as comedy, 10 is fashion, 10 is travel, 9 is politics, 8 is beauty, and then a bunch of other categories that it doesn't list. And then it gives us a lot of nice statistical information. And this is what you're really going to want to point to for your students. You can see it gives the minimum duration looks like 5 seconds. The first quartile is 11 seconds. The median duration of the videos that it pulled is 17 seconds. And then we have a long video that's almost a minute. And it also gives the same statistics for the number of views, the number of likes. So you can have your students kind of look through some of the data here and what it looks like. Okay, so now that the students, and again, before you go into this, you can have the students talk through these first 3 questions. This just gets them kind of ready for all the data that they're going to work with in the actual data file. But you can see we ask, what are some key summary statistics that stick out to you? So it does really kind of make them get used to looking at the output form that it looks like in here. And then now it says, let's start creating some visuals to really help us look at the data. Because as wonderful and as much information as you can get from data like this, we all know that the most powerful part of data is data storytelling, and visuals really, really help with that. So in order to do that, we are going to looks like I have some code here that's going to help see it, kind of a distribution of views. I feel like this isn't going to give us a lot of information, just kind of going to show this statistical concept here in a visual form, but I think that's still pretty helpful. So, okay, you can see that similar to this, we had a minimum view of about 38,000, which corresponds to this right here. And then we have kind of definitely not a normal curve, but it looks like the data spreads out to maximum viewership over here at almost 22,000 views. So this is just getting your students ready to visualize and look at the data a little bit. I don't think that there's necessarily any huge concepts that they might glean out of that. But if we drill down into a category, this might really help us. And you can tell students they don't need WebR to make this graph every time. So when they're doing the next graph, once they've understood everything they wanted from this graph, they can just paste over this one and have it run again, so it just pops up with a new graph. Okay, so when I look at this one, I can see now I'm actually getting some pretty interesting data. Right off the bat, I guess, as I'm shooting this, this is April of 2025, so It does make a little bit of sense that there's a lot of political videos maybe out on TikTok right now that are trending or doing pretty well. But you can see the students look through the different types of categories, and they can just see how many views are these things getting, and they can look at the box plots to be able to see kind of how successful are these different categories. And it has them walk through like what these things seem to mean for each. I'm not going to walk through the whole lesson because you're kind of getting the point of it now, but essentially they'll then take the code and they can kind of see what the engagement rate looks like. They can see if there's any trends in video duration. It can see if there's an ideal time to post a TikTok video. This code is pretty interesting. You can see it's a little bit bigger because time stamping tends to be one of the harder things to do in code. But again, please don't worry. You can just copy. Let's just make sure that this is still working. Paste over this one and run it. Nice. Okay, another box plot. It looks like it is in a 24-hour format, and it just shows if there's any like peak times to post. So it looks like the most views, there's like kind of a little bump maybe around lunch, and then it looks like a bump at dinner and evening time, which makes a lot of sense. And then there's some data, seeing if there's data to support whether or not you should put a sound clip in your video or different hashtags. They can kind of drill down and see essentially what makes a TikTok video go viral. And then they can compare the statistics that they're getting from this with some of the things that they have done in the beginning before they even looked at the big data set. Just seeing, okay, what did this smaller sample seem to tell us? So overall, I think this is a pretty good lesson to get your students not only comfortable with a little bit of coding in this tool and the WebR platform, but getting the stories that are kind of teased out of the data that you can get from TikTok. Something that's really fun about this lesson is that I've provided you with a CSV file of TikTok data, but you can go and grab this TikTok data and update it whenever you want so that you can really see, for example, when we looked at not the time of day posted, but the category, and we saw that politics was kind of seeing a jump at the moment. Well, I'm sure that those kind of trends change over time. So it'd be really nice to go and grab some different time-stamped of TikTok data and see kind of how these trends vary over time. And you can use the exact same code to work with that data as long as you format it to look like the exact same column titles in the way that the data is in this original TikTok. Okay, teachers, just some final troubleshooting tips here. If students are having a problem loading the data, double check that the file name matches exactly what it's calling in the code, that you haven't changed the name of the data set, because that will make it so that it doesn't load. If the plots aren't displaying, try running each code separately. Make sure that they're not just like pasting below, because that will just maybe lag the system, and it can have a shot that they're like cutting off some of the code when they do that. For the sampling distributions, if students get an error, make sure that they've defined the sample means function before they try to use it. And then remember that the main goal is to try to understand the concepts, not mastering our programming. So focus on the patterns in the data and what they tell us about successful TikTok videos, and don't try to like get into the minutia of each data point. So I hope this walkthrough really helps bring this lesson to your classroom. By connecting statistical concepts to something that students are already interested in, you'll see hopefully so much higher engagement and a better retention of some of these ideas. All the materials that were mentioned and used in this, the student worksheet, the teacher guide, the code samples, they're available in the link underneath the video. If you have any questions or you want to share about how you use this resource in your classroom, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Happy teaching.